What's crack-a-lackin', everybody? Now, to start off, despite the title of the video, I want to make it clear that Digimon is one of, if not my favorite IP out there. But it can't be denied that it never really hit its potential and definitely never hit the popularity of Pokemon. But in this time, I'm going to give you guys a brief history along with why that happened and try to talk about some of the games and where they kind of went wrong. So sit back, relax, and enjoy, and let's take a deep dive into the digital world. So to start off, we're going to talk about when these amazing IPs graced us North Americans decades ago. And Pokemon got its first leg up on Digimon by premiering in the West in 1998 of September. Digimon didn't premiere out here until August of 1999, giving Pokemon almost an entire year ahead of them. So when a second show from Japan premiered with Mon in the title, featuring kids on an adventure with occasionally evolving monsters, it's very easy to see why kids started drawing similarities and thinking that Digimon was just the Diet Coke to Pokemon. Even though the shows were very different, with Pokemon focusing on battle culture and just trying to be the best in the region, Digimon tend to focus on an end-of-the-world plot. But this doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of Digimon's rough history at the beginning. In November of 1999, Pokemon would release its first movie in theaters to stunning success. Well, Fox Kids saw this and were like, hey, yo, we want a movie too, but they wanted a full feature-length film, and some Japanese movies tend to only be 45-minute specials. So once again, 11 months behind, they release a movie in October of 2000, except it's just a hosh-posh of 3 movies put together. And this obviously forced them to change some of the story, and mind you, it wasn't a bad film. It was very funny, and if you were in the theaters watching Diaboromon get obliterated by Omnimon, it was a transcendent experience. But it doesn't change the fact that these movies were obviously kind of awkward media-wise, and you could tell something was off with the pacing. It was kind of weird. But I will say a creative thing they managed to do is fit the cast of the new show that actually premiered in August of 2000 that year with the old cast in this hosh-posh. But this brings me to my next point of what hurt Digimon at the start. Pokemon managed to maintain the same protagonist, Ash Ketchum and Pikachu, for 25 years. Mind you, his traveling partners changed now and again, but ultimately it was the same character. Digimon kind of went the opposite route, where they had 4 different series from 1999 to 2002 with 4 sets of protagonists. There is overlap between series 1 and 2, but beyond that, there's no consistent Digimon that you could really call the mascot like Pikachu. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Agumon. I mean, he's the first thing I think of when I think of Digimon, but Patamon would probably be a better choice in the long term. It's not only cuter, it and its Digivolutions have been featured more in series 1, 2, and 4, staying as a main cast member in series 2. My point here is that Pokemon definitely had the right idea sticking with a core cast member and monster. The proverbial mascot could be any one of the protagonist Digimon to somebody else. Like, I think of Agumon, somebody else might think of Gabumon. A broad cast of characters isn't a bad idea, it helps them relate to more people, but when they needed to make a fast foothold in America, it didn't help. I don't want to say they diluted the brand, that's not really the right term, but it's kind of like they cast a giant net over a lake and still only managed to catch about 5% of the fish, which is unfortunate because Digimon tended to focus more on interpersonal problems than Pokemon ever did, but that isn't a great tactic when you're trying to scoop in 10-year-olds and younger to get a mass audience for your show. It just didn't give Digimon the running start Pokemon got. Moving on though, I want to talk about their video games and how they didn't quite hit the mark with the audience either. So because I don't want this entire video to be comparing Pokemon and Digimon, I'm only going to talk about their first 3 games when I discuss the 2, and then we are going to exclusively move on to Digimon stuff. And I feel like I'm being really negative towards Digimon in this video, but I swear to Serafimon, I love it. Now when I say I'm going to focus in on their first 3 games, I'm talking about Pokemon Gens 1, 2, and 3, and Digimon World 1, 2, and 3. It's what I consider their core games, and gives us a decent baseline on discussing both series. With Pokemon, there isn't much to say, but that actually benefits them. Beyond adding new Pokemon each generation, a new region to explore, a couple new types, they didn't really do anything to differentiate the gameplay, meaning people knew exactly what to expect from the games, but still got a new experience. On top of that, these games were not heavy story-based, so you didn't miss out on core details if you didn't play the previous entries. Coupled with easy turn-based combat and tight matchups that made sense, it made it very easy for newcomers to just join the franchise. So once again, the hallmarks of consistency and accessibility made them staples in their genre. genre. Unfortunately for Digimon, they did not do that. When you talk about Digimon Worlds 1, 2, and 3, heck, you could even add 4 to that list, you are talking about 4 very different games. Something you have to keep in mind both with the shows and the games for the series is that they constantly take place in a multiverse, and that concept is almost never well explained in this IP, so you can imagine how confused children were. But let's do a quick breakdown of the Digimon World games. To start off, Digimon World 1. In this game, you are trying to rebuild the population of File City. Digimon are losing their memories and going feral, and you're trying to help them retrieve them. You would get one Digimon partner, and the battle system was kind of an auto battle where you would occasionally give commands. Now the weird thing in this game is that your partner Digimon would eventually die. Depending on how you raised it is what it would digivolve to, but ultimately you'd have to re-raise it again and again. Done right, this mechanic is amazing and allows you to try many different Digimon throughout your playthrough. Unfortunately, many people didn't understand the system and just kept getting Numamon, which just frustrated them to no end. Imagine thinking your Agumon's gonna turn into a big fire-breathing dinosaur and instead you get this. I would be ashamed to give birth to this. Anyway, let's move on to Digimon World 2. For some reason, it is a 3v3 turn-based dungeon crawler that moves at a snail's pace. It is widely considered the worst Digimon game to date. The plot is considered very dull, with you just trying to stop an evil syndicate called the Blood Knights, who are ex-guards of the city that now just want revenge on the city or something. It's not well defined. 30 years prior, they tried to stage some kind of revolt, it didn't go well, and they're just still kind of PO'd about that. For the most part, you're just getting missions to stop wild Digimon that want to attack the city and the Blood Knights, so yeah, it was kind of a weird gameplay loop that people just didn't enjoy. But once again, this was a huge departure from the previous game, so a lot of people went in expecting one thing and just getting very confused by what they were doing. Moving on to Digimon World 3 though. This game is once again a departure from the previous, but I would say it went in a positive direction, even if it wasn't super well reviewed. This one is a lot more like an RPG with 1v1 turn-based combat. The general plot of this game is about your character going into a Digimon MMO simulator and eventually getting trapped and needing to escape. On top of that, people are getting turned into Oinkmon, so it adds an extra sense of danger like, hey, you might not just be trapped here, you might end up living a miserable existence. Unfortunately, this game was plagued with a lot of issues, like the game itself just being slow and tedious, but on top of that, they don't really tell you where to go, and like every 3 steps you get an encounter. So you quickly start developing battle fatigue because it's just every 5 seconds. Sometimes you ended up having to explore all the way to the other side of the map, and it was just not a good time. I got this game in elementary school and didn't beat it until high school because I just didn't know what to do. Finally though, let's talk about Digimon World 4. I'm not gonna sit here and go blah 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 departure from the last game, you guys get it. This was a hack and slash. Sorry, a poorly executed hack and slash with no humans and just Digimon wearing weapons. The plot of this game is pretty bare bones too. It's just there's a virus spreading around the digital world, a certain server has disappeared and been replaced by a doomed server, and you guys are just trying to fix that. The ultimate point to these 4 games is that there was no consistency. It just felt like they were throwing stuff at the wall and trying to see what would stick, and nothing was sticking. But we're finally done talking about the core games and can move on to talking about what they've done over the years along with what they've done recently. So Digimon side games have been kinda interesting over the years. They've had a couple Smash clones, a kart racer, and a slew of handheld games. They even at one point attempted a dual version release like Pokemon and Digimon Dusk and Dawn. Unfortunately, barring the Smash clones and the kart racer, a lot of these games suffered from an issue of feeling too grindy. A lot of people didn't want to pick up a game they perceived as a time sink, and on top of that, it was apparently very hard to get certain evolutions, so even the major fans felt a little deterred from these games, which is really unfortunate. When I say that Digimon is wasting its potential, I'm really focusing more on the games. I'm not saying the lack of consistency in their media helped, but it's definitely not their weakest point. The animes were usually like 50 episode runs, and although they felt a little rushed, they were still complete and enjoyable stories. My point is, they did what they set out to do, something the games seem to fall flat on. Another common complaint is that the games either have too little story or too much story, which segues me to talking about 2 of their more recent games, Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory. These games are amazing, and I put well over 100 hours into each of them, but they do have problems. The first being that the games are pretty grindy for levels, especially if you want certain Digivolutions, and the next one is more up for personal preference, but long cutscenes with English subs and Japanese audio. I'll admit with the length of some of them, it would be hard even if it was in my native tongue, but when you have to constantly click through it, it just makes my brain turn off. And from what I've read, I'm apparently not the only person that feels that way, which is not super super surprising, but hey, whatever floats people's boats. I will tell you that if you do tough it out like I did, the story is solid. The Eaters, which are the main antagonists of the game, are not only fun enemies to look at, they're actually pretty fun to fight. They're pure neutral enemies to all damage types, so it's like fighting an entire team of Spiritombs in Gen 4. And although that can be a little frustrating, it also gives you a good baseline at where your Digimon are currently at. The only other big game they've released in recent years was Digimon Survive, and it's a game that's a bit hard to describe. For the most part, you could say that it's like a horror visual novel with tactical RPG sprinkled inside of it, but similar to a Telltale game, your actions and choices will affect the trajectory of the story. Unfortunately, it was mostly met with mediocre reviews because people weren't expecting a visual novel and were probably thinking it was going to be something similar to Cyber Sleuth. But if you go into this game knowing that fact, I'm telling you, it's a pretty enjoyable ride, and if you like dark tones, then definitely pick it up. I'm not going to tell you how or who, but people do get off in this game. And it's not just, oh, they went to a better place. It's no, they are gone. They are dead, unalived, whatever YouTube wants me to call it. But I'll admit the game caught me by surprise the first time it happened. Now, before I close out this segment, I wanted to talk about a few ideas I had for Digimon in terms of their games. And the first, and I can't believe they haven't done this before because it feels so obvious, but a Digimon roguelike. And how I'm thinking this would work is first it would start off giving you a random Digi-Egg. The digital world has like every climate, so you could go based off of that. Just be like, oh, the first area is grassy, second desert, then volcanic, then aquatic. But then similar to Hades, you clear a room, you get to pick a perk, and based on the perks you pick is how your Digimon would Digivolve. Like say you were currently rocking a Greymon. If you pick more offensive traits, he'll Digivolve into Skull Greymon. If you pick more defensive traits, he'll Digivolve into Metal Greymon. I came up with that idea off the top of my head one day, and I'm just surprised it hasn't been done. It just feels like that genre would fit the series like a glove. My other idea is basically just making kind of a Pokemon clone. You'd start off with a partner Digimon, and then you could scan-tame Digimon to join your team, but instead of like gyms and stuff, they could go the Nexomon route and just have like an end of the world plot. It's not like it'd be a new thing for the series. I've always run with the idea that Pokemon doesn't own the monster tamer genre, and there's plenty of ways they can differentiate the combat. I would honestly love Digimon's take on a straight up monster tamer. Heck, I wouldn't even be bothered if they reused assets from Cyber Sleuth or Hacker's Memory. I mean, they did special attack animations for like every Digimon. I think it would be a good time, but we're gonna move on to my last segment where we're gonna talk about what's coming in the near future for the franchise. So right now, Digimon has two major things coming down the pipeline for America. The first is a game, Digimon Time Stranger, which comes out 2 days from when I'm posting this video. This I'm actually pretty hyped about, and one of the few times I've pre-ordered a game. The plot revolves around a character being sent 8 years into the past, and it looks like it's going to be playing a lot like Cyber Sleuth. On top of that, you can see from this image that they improved the graphics between games. So I'm actually pretty excited, which is not something I've been able to say about a game release in a while. Now I'm going to take a quick moment to dunk on Pokemon because I feel like I've been really mean to Digimon this whole video, but Pokemon is estimated to be worth over $100 billion, and this is the quality of game they're putting out compared to Digimon that's only estimated to be worth about $6 billion. And I've wanted to say this the entire video, and you're free to disagree with me, but if there was ever a time for Digimon to produce games and take over the market from them, it's while they're not acting like a $100 billion company. But I want to make one more thing clear before we move on. I am not trying to disparage the people that enjoy current Pokemon games. If you are picking up Scarlet and Violet or the next Legends game, please don't let my opinion affect your enjoyment. Personally, they are not for me anymore, but if you still love them, please keep loving them. Anyway, let's move on. The other major thing Digimon has coming out in the near future is their anime Digimon Ghost game. We're getting the first 33 episodes dubbed, which is about half the series. The show has horror elements, which I'm excited about because if Digimon Survive showed us anything, the digital world can be scary. But I'm also excited because we haven't had a new Digimon show in the West in like 3 years. And even though it's only about half the show, any new media to me is a win. But these are the two major releases that have been announced as of right now. And I really hope it's a sign that they're ramping up production in the US. Something I also want to make a small note of is that if Time Stranger is going to be playing similar to Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory, it means they're finally sticking to some consistency. And I've said it multiple times throughout this video, but I feel like a lack of consistency is what's been holding them back. Now, I'm not going to say that Cyber Sleuth was a perfect game in terms of balance, balance, but if they're going to be sticking to the same mechanics, it's gonna give them time to polish. They had already started doing quality of life improvements on Hacker's Memory, so I can only assume that they're going to continue getting better. Ultimately though, I would still say those first two games aren't as approachable as a Pokemon game, but I'm hoping with subsequent releases that the game becomes more and more accessible without losing what makes it fun. At minimum, I hope they don't have their own version of Dexit. You don't have to copy everything Pokemon did. Anyway, I'm going to start wrapping this video up, but I would love to hear people's opinions about these franchises in the comments below, or if you guys have any other ideas for games that I didn't think of. I would love for something to turn into a discussion. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to have more coming out talking about other medias I really like, but probably mostly games. But if you could like and subscribe, you'd be helping me out a ton. As usual though, try not to do anything too stupid, please keep yourself safe, and until next time, this is Thundross signing off.